Well, order in Singapore. Let's first talk about the overall philosophy of law and order. Singapore's legal system is based on the English common law system. Singapore uses law and punishment to keep the order in the country, and through this very rigorous system, Singapore can be one of the safest and with the most effective judicial systems in the world. The government has no affiliation with any religious organization, and, as it might not happen in other countries, laws in Singapore are strictly followed, otherwise, severe punishment undergoes. The 2008 Political and Economic Risk Consultancy Survey reported Hong Kong and Singapore as having the best judicial systems in Asia. Singapore scored 1.92, 0 representing the best performance and 10 the worst, followed by Japan with a 3.5 and South Korea with a 4.6. In 2010, the Rule of Law Index ranked Singapore number 1 for access to civil justice in the high-income countries group. Well, now, how is order maintained in Singapore? Well, Singapore is famous around the world for its use of both corporal and capital punishment. Singapore has one of the most strictly enforced penal codes, with some of the most severe penalties. The crimes that can result in caning in Singapore are various, such as drug abuse, possession of weapons, kidnapping, robbery, sexual abuse, rioting, overstaying a visa by more than 90 days, and vandalism. Famous cases of vandalism, for example graffiti, have been met with caning, the usual form of corporal punishment in Singapore, reserved for male delinquents under the age of 50. So to be canned, you have to be male and under the age of 50. The number of capital punishments carried out in Singapore was also very high, particularly in the 1990s, a time in which the country was among the nations with the highest per capita death sentences. In 2011, 4 executions were reported. Murder, drug trafficking, discharge of firearms, mutiny, and treason are some of the forms of crime in Singapore punishable by death. Amnesty International says that Singapore has one of the world's highest rates of execution relative to its population. By the way, the Singapore's police force is known for its swift and professional response to emergency calls and crime reports. The emergency number of the Singaporean police is 999. Now, freedom from fear. Out of 192 countries, Singapore is number 172 when it comes to death caused by violence. Street crime in Singapore is low, with the predominant forms being theft, pickpocketing, purse snatching, and the like. Most often, these crimes occur when the opportunity arises and someone leaves their possessions unattended, or in crowded areas such as MRTs, marketplaces, nightclubs, and etc. Well, housebreaking, burglary, and other property crimes are getting rarer too. Singapore experienced a 25% drop in these forms of crime between 2010 and 2011. The most common form of crime in Singapore is the commercial kind, such as credit card fraud. Guns and other firearms are strictly controlled by the government and police, and the penalties for carrying a firearm is severe. There is also a very noticeable lack of drug-related crime in Singapore. Now let's relate order to freedom. Well, just as in any other nation, order and freedom overlap quite a bit in a country's system. In the case of Singapore, order overlaps freedom much more than the other way around. In Singapore, the government does not believe that freedom can be used to keep the harmony in a country. Hence, through laws and severe punishments, the Singaporean government is able to maintain a stable and highly organized country, and not through social freedom. And that's all we have about Singapore. I hope you liked. Thank you.